there's too many entrepreneurs who have never led anything in their lives. And I think that that's the issue.
That's an episode.
And I know I'm being very broad and I'm with that, but they're a solopreneur by necessity, not necessarily right because they want to be. Because they don't have the relationship skills. They don't have the understanding of someone else's perspective when it comes to working and building something, right? If you've ever built something, if you've built a house, you understand, right? You're the carpenter. Great. All this looks nice, but you can't do this. You can't sell a house with no roof.
No.
Right? You can't sell a house with no plumbing.
No.
So you understand all the pieces make sense. And to your football analogy, right? Why do you think the quarterbacks buy the linemen Rolexes? Right? Because they do the dirty work. And you understand it. But see, for me, from a sports analogy, I've been the guy who would rebound and set picks. And then I've been the guy who's been the star player. So I understand why both work, right? Because I can't get open if you don't set the pick.
Yeah.
Right? I can't, if my point guard doesn't orchestrate the offense, I might have made the bucket. But if he doesn't get the defense to shift, so my thing is that when you see, I've won championships, right? High school, college. Like I've been a part of teams, right? And project management and have developed and grown stuff. So this is what I'm saying is that you have to take the skills that you learned on someone else's time and use it at your job. But the problem is, right? You jumped into entrepreneurship, but last job you had, you was washing dishes. Last job you had, you was serving tables. And I'm not mad at that job. It's just you asking yourself, I'm going to go from the mailroom and then try to be a CEO and president.
Brutal.
But not learning the steps, right, that it takes. When you start off, and that's what I said, when you build it up, I gotta be the secretary right now. I gotta be the admin. I gotta run out here and get my social coffee.
Yeah.
I gotta run out here and right, you have to do everything that you need to do for your business. When I first started the trucking, I gotta figure out the license plate. I gotta run back and forth to the DMV. I gotta interview my drivers. I gotta make sure I'm talking with the mechanic. I'm doing it all. And then I knew and then I built systems around it. And the only way you get around that though, is that if you start off with a vision of what you want and you have the capital to not build but buy. And then you said something about having the two visions. If you have two visionaries, the only way it works is when one of them concedes that right? Like this concedes as in one is there to replace the other. That's when it works. So when one visionary goes from the visionary as in I'm the chairman and this person's the CEO. Because the goal, right, and I'm just being honest, right, is that you go from the entrepreneur, right, where you're wearing many hats. You go down to I'm being like the technician, entrepreneur, I'm managing, right? And then from the management, you go to the entrepreneur, which really means, right, you're really being the chairperson, because what happens is that now the business runs itself without you being involved, and you need a new visionary to take that business somewhere else. And sometimes that new visionary can do it better than you.
Woo! I don't have my notebook, but that was a couple bars. The thing with that is you can build a business. You can start off building a business, having a partnership, but there might come a time where it works so well where you figure out it's time for us to exit it and go to what's next. Versus I'm gonna die on this hill. It's like, bro, you cannot die on that hill and go to the next venture. It's not just hopping to the next venture, but you can go to the next venture because what your work here is done there. Now you can take all those skills, all the relationships, the networking you've done to go build the next thing.
So Drew, so what I'm hearing you say right now is that not every business is a forever business.
No.
And that so the way I connect with what you said is that I want people to think about this. the traditional person is going to go, and when you do buy your first house, it might be a small house, it might be a condo, but they call it a starter home.
Starter home.
And a lot of times, a starter home, that's when you get your FHA out, right? And I'm talking about the typical, like, right, like you're not thinking entrepreneur, like, but just you get a starter home. And the reason why you get that starter home is that you stay in that starter home, you usually stay there for 5 to 10 years, right? And then you use the equity from that, and hopefully the house goes up, maybe you did a little work on it, right? That's usually what happens, and then you sell that, you take the equity and you buy a bigger home. When you start that starter job, when you're in those starter roles, you take the equity you learn in skill set, the equity you learn in business, the equity you learn in partnerships and networking. You take that equity and then you add that, right, to the next business that might be a partnership, right, or just might be something where now you can go ahead and now the things that came fast to you that felt like made you in a hurry are now coming slow. Right? So then now you're at a new level where you're trying to find things outside your comfort zone so you can grow even more.
I can't let that slide without touching on that. You have to go after the things that are not comfortable for you so that you can grow. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, you can lose every ounce of money in your bank account. Skill sets are really, really hard to just lose.
Yes.
And if you have proper skill sets that you, if we would quote one of our previous episodes, that you were making sure that you stay dangerous with to build those things, you could always put that person in any category.
Yeah.
And eventually you're going to see them like doing some work. So it's like the skill sets for the entrepreneur. You can't despise the small beginning of I'm a solopreneur, I'm doing it all by myself, right?
Yes.
You're not gonna just go from like you don't just think you're gonna be an entrepreneur and just automatically just create massive cash flow. Also, like, usually you have to go through the steps, but you don't